Welcome to the Delvin Cox Experience, the podcast in which each week I am on a one-man mission to unite our culture through diversity. I'm your host, Delvin Cox, and with me this week on the podcast is an all-star lineup. Sometimes when you want a job done, you got to get women in there to do it. So, going from, I guess, left to right, let everybody know who you are. I guess you go first, Lindsay.
You already introduced me, so.
You didn't say your whole name.
I'm Lindsay Gray.
Tell them what you do.
I'm an actress.
Well,
what else do you want?
You've been on this show for, you know how to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Gray, and I'm an actress. I also work at Warner Brothers Discovery.
There you go. I guess you go next, Crystal.
Hi, I am Crystal. I love being on Delvin's show. I'm an author, I'm a show creator, and I'm pissed the fuck off.
And she created one of my favorite podcasts with her spouse.
I'll
let you go, Pixie.
Well, this is the first time I've been on Devlin's show. I'm Hannah Cardiac, and I am an aspiring linguist and polyglot.
There you go. I guess, Anna, you go last.
Hey, y'all. I'm Anna, attorney Anna. I am a legal contributor to Dig on America and resident lawyer and lover of fun things. So
there you go. So people may be wondering, why do I have all these intelligent, smart women on this podcast, this episode? As you may know, unless you've been living in a hole in the wall, and some of you act like y'all have.
It's true.
I like how he came out with the shots fired. Like that was right now, like off the bat. Like
a landmark decision was kind of put out there. Roe v. Wade was overturned. So I figured I am not equipped to have this conversation. So I figured I'd get some of the best women I know, the best minds I know, to have that conversation for me, to open people's minds to what's going on, what's happening right now, how did it happen, what can we do about it, and how can we educate ourselves on everything that's going on today? Because I think there's a lot of misinformation being spread around. I think knowledge is power, and I think the more we educate ourselves on these things, the better equipped we can be so we don't repeat the mistakes of history, and we know what to do with everything that's going on now. Because there's a lot going on. So much stuff going on that it's hard to even talk about. But I feel like it's my duty as a podcaster that some people listen to kind of give you the proper information and put it out there for you guys. So that's what I'm here to do. With that being said, Anna, let people know what's going on in terms of the legality of things, how this works. How did this happen? You give your synopsis.
Sure. So basically, recently, the last, I guess, 2 or so weeks now, there was a Supreme Court case, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, which I think, as everybody knows and has been talking about, stripped women and people are able to have children of the fundamental right to privacy, that is to be able to get an abortion. And essentially, the court reasoned that there was no fundamental right to privacy in the Constitution. And that was really a large part of the reason that they overturned what had been longstanding precedent 50 years, Roe versus Wade in the 70s, Casey versus Planned Parenthood in the 90s. And so it really came as a shock because in the Roe versus Wade, which was I believe a 1973 case, the court explicitly stated that people have the right to make intimate decisions, whether it's about contraception, whether it's about abortion, whether it's about, this is not the same case, but interracial marriages, same-sex marriages, things like that. Basically, things that happen in your bedroom and within your body are, you have a fundamental right to privacy under due process, the due process clause. In the 90s, though, as you can imagine, whenever someone says, oh, you can have an abortion and people don't want you to have an abortion, states started putting in all these restrictions on abortion that did not outright expel abortion, but they tried to procedurally limit them in such a way that it was extremely difficult for women to get abortion. So for example, they would say that doctors who provided abortions had to have like hospital admitting privileges, or if you had an abortion, maybe there was a mandatory waiting period and you had to read certain literature before you got an abortion. Sometimes there was spousal consent laws. Sometimes there was parental consent laws. Sometimes they just put all these provisions in place to try to make it more difficult and inaccessible permissible. So that happened in the 90s. And as we know, there were a lot of what I call forced birth activists that wanted to try to get this overturned. And they did a lot of lobbying. They did a lot of local elections, things like that. So basically what this Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health is saying is not that there is women can't have an abortion. It didn't necessarily make it illegal across the country, but what it said was that states have the right to decide on their own whether abortion is going to be legal. And previously, the court had ruled that there was a fundamental right to privacy, so that states could not choose to tell you that you couldn't get an abortion. They had, if someone opened up shop saying that they were doing abortions, you couldn't say, oh, no, you can't have one. But this case effectively says the state of Mississippi can determine whether its residents can get an abortion. And so the impact of that was that a lot of states, I believe at least 15 to 20 states, had trigger laws put in place already that in the event that a ruling like this came out, it would be automatically illegal for women to get an abortion. And the interesting thing about the case in general is that in Mississippi, the Jackson Women's Health was the only abortion clinic in the entire Mississippi anyway. So it's not like there were just all these abortion clinics where women were just, getting abortions and whatnot. So that's the long and short of it, is that we had the right. Now we don't. It's jacked up.
So I guess from what you were saying, let's start with Hannah. Hannah, when you first heard this, what were your thoughts and your opinions, and how did you feel? Because I want to go around the room and ask you guys thoughts and opinions on this.
It's like a double-edged sword of sure, I was surprised, but I also wasn't surprised because we've gotten little hints of it here and there that it was going to happen. It's one of those things where you hope it won't happen, or you do your own causes to try and prevent it, or sign your petitions or whatever, you get educated. And I remember that Crystal and I woke up in the morning and we both went on Twitter and we saw the news, and we were already having a stressed week, and that just put the sword right in, and we were just unholy levels of pissed off. And I'm both glad and not glad that this occurred, because it gave me the opportunity to get more educated about other things that this affects in women's healthcare and people who can have a child. The biggest one having to do with if your body can't discharge a miscarriage, you have to have an abortion or you will die. And now that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's powerful and terrifying for a lot of women. I can imagine. I shudder thinking about something like that. Crystal, you can go ahead next.
Okay. I'm gonna try not to go. I'm gonna try not to get on the soapbox because I'm just. That's what you're here for. Yeah, I want everybody.
In a great place for it.
Yeah, I just want everybody to get their opportunity, because I honestly don't know where to start with this. It is beyond fucked up, and I don't know how to make people who are these forced birthers just understand that if you do not, it doesn't matter what your moral beliefs are. It does not matter whether you believe what God you believe in. If you as an individual do not have a bodily autonomy, if a state, a government can come in and tell you what you can and cannot do with your body, there has got to be a level of concern there. There should be a huge level of concern there. And I get the whole, we should give rights back to the states. And listen, I'm one of those people that I'm not really a Democrat. I'm not really a Republican. I toe a lot of lines and I piss a lot of people off with my political views, and I don't give a shit. And listen, in a great world where human beings were mature and weren't ruled by theocracy or fucking the fact that y'all need to get in therapy and do your fucking shadow work, I'm all for laws that let's leave it to the states, let's let private businesses do whatever the fuck they want to do. And, I'd love to live in a world like that. We are not mature enough. We are not there yet, because there are literally laws on the books right now that will let a grown ass man marry a 10-year-old. That lets me know off the bat that states do not have the maturity to be able to make these kinds of individual decisions. You just fucking don't. The fact that there is, and this isn't like an outliner either, like the fact that there are literally now 10-year-old girls who are going to be forced to have children. And if you are a pro-lifer, say you're one of the good ones, say you're a good pro-lifer, that you're kind of just like, I'm pro-life, but I don't, and you're not like sounding the alarm about this, and you're not making noise, and you're not quote unquote with us to like pushing our elected officials to fucking do something because, hey, we voted for you. Maybe you should use that power, and I'm tired of hearing your fucking excuses as to why you can't. It's beyond. It's beyond. And listen, I know that for a lot of people, it's abortion is murder, right? I need these people to understand science. I desperately need you to fucking understand science. Because if you think that and you don't understand, like that's literally the disconnect. People are stupid. I hate to say it, but y'all are fucking dumb. If I have an embryo in a petri dish and a baby in one hand, and I tell you I'm going to drop one, if you honestly believe the murder is, you will be unable to make a decision. You won't be able to choose between the petri dish, and you won't be able to choose between the baby. But I bet 99.9% of y'all are going to save the fucking baby and not what's in the goddamn petri dish. So I need people to understand that this is fucked. And this isn't just going to affect my bodily anatomy. It's going to affect my ability to marry my wife. So now me and Hannah have got to get powers of attorneys. We got to make sure that our wills are all in line. And this is a smart thing to do regardless. But now there is an urgency for me to do these things. My brother is married, and my brother has been with a Black lady for, God, I don't even know how long. That's now, and they live in Florida. Everything has just become real suspect. So now on top of the bullshit of the last 2 fucking years, now I've got to get real serious about not just survival mode because of COVID, but now survival mode because of this theocracy that is taking over the country. And I'm done. I'm done like debating with people about this. Like, if you can't see at this point, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. You can just go live in Russia, bruh. They'll love you over there.
Yeah. I guess you're up, Lindsay.
I mean, how do I follow that?
Girl, just be mad with me. It's cool.
Be mad.
Yeah, it's cool.
Speak to my heart.
Yep.
When I remember getting up, and of course I'm in California, so I'm 3 hours behind everybody, and so I kind of saw the news, the last in the group, and my heart dropped. It was like somebody had like punched me, not only in my stomach, but in the same time in my throat, because my whole life it was land of the law, or law of the land. Abortions were protected by the federal government, and now all of a sudden it's not. And it's not just abortions. And they're not. Delvin, you and I talked about this before everybody got on. They didn't outlaw abortions. They outlawed safe abortions, because there's women out there who are going to get desperate, and they're not going to be able to go to a doctor and ask for the 2 pills that create the abortion pill. And they're going to end up going to back alleys or suspect places. And the blood is going to be on the Supreme Court's hands. That's all I got to say. The whole thing is just, it's nauseating. I'm with Crystal. I'm pissed off. And I live in California, and luckily, the company I work for, Warner Brothers, is helping anybody who lives in a state that now no longer has access to abortions. They are paying for the employees and the employees' families to go to a different state and get the abortions that they need, or the healthcare that they need. And I think that is amazing. I know a lot of other companies are doing that, and it just shows like how united we are. But I swear, if I hear one more fucking prayer or poem about some bullshit crap going on in the government, I'm going to slap somebody. I might need a lawyer, because I'm going to slap somebody in Congress.
We need to. Listen.
I may need a lawyer. So just a heads up.
I'm not advocating violence or anything, but all I'm saying is, like, the French president steps out of line and they'll throw a fucking bathtub through his window. And I'm just saying, Americans, we real basic over here, and we tolerate a lot. And I think we just need to stop.
Yeah.
No, it's not the time for poetry. It's time for like actual rioting at this point because
Exactly.
Like, remember when somebody threw that shoe at George Bush?
That was the
Mhm.
funniest
That was
shit in the
like
world.
Iran.
Right. That's literally where, look how fast they got it done when somebody was threatening a Supreme Court justice at his house. Oh my God. They got in session so fast. They passed that shit. So I am so fucking, listen, I've been a business owner. I've been a business owner. I have employees. I feel like we've all, worked jobs. If any of us performed the way our fucking government does,
Mhm.
you got me fucked up. Your boss literally says to you, hey, I've empowered you with this, this, and this. I need you to get this done. And you're like, well, I can't because my coworker in aisle 7 keeps fucking up. So I can't really do my job. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of hearing that. I'm so fucking tired of hearing. I don't care. I get it done. At this point, I do not give a shit what you have to do. We voted. We did it. Do your fucking job. I don't want to hear any more goddamn excuses because you know what? Republicans, we don't hear that shit from them, whether they got a majority or they don't got a majority. They out here getting shit done.
Yep.
The only thing Democrats do, thoughts and prayers, hey, fundraising, email, hey, if you just turn this state or if you just go vote again or if you just do this, then we can help you.
Or take pictures in front of a TV with a news thing looking all concerned, quote unquote. Like, what the fuck?
I'm over it. I'm over it. Figure it the fuck out.
That was the most bullshit picture of Paris I've ever seen. Like, goddamn.
Yeah. Well,
The Democrats need to grow some fucking balls.
That's straight up.
Just grow some fucking balls and do what you need to do. You have majority. Why the fuck can't you get shit done?
Well, let me ask Anna this because I think Anna can answer some of these questions. How the fuck did we get here? In terms of like, I know this sounds crazy. It sounds a little wild to ask this, but if you look at this whole thing, somebody dropped the ball big time in terms of like, okay, Kavanaugh gets into Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett gets into the Supreme Court. How the fuck did this happen? Two people who are clearly unqualified for the job. They're in there, and they essentially they kind of say, "Oh, we're not here to overturn Roe v. Wade." Then they get in office. Gotcha, bitches. That's exactly what we're here to do. It's kind of like it seems like somewhere, and this is my own thing. When all this happened, the first thing I said was, when this Roe v. Wade thing went down, like, our system failed us. The checks and balances that were put in place did not work. Everything that happened from X amount of time to now failed. And the problem I have with that is, and this is what bothered me about the whole situation. When the whole thing came out, they kind of said, okay, Roe v. Wade's kind of over. The Supreme Court hearing came out and stuff like that. People weren't cheering because it was over. I seen a lot of people cheering because their side won. Mm-hmm. And that bothered me. Mm-hmm. Because it basically tells me you don't really care about the issue. You care about your party being right and winning. And that is a failure in our system itself.
People who... sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's literally just people who aren't powerful that want to feel powerful in the moment. It's this disgusting psychological thing.
For me, I think one, to just address the last point, I think part of it is that, in my opinion, and this is true of Democrats also, but particularly Republicans, there's a faction of the party who genuinely believes that abortion is murder. And since Roe versus Wade, that lobby or that group of individuals have been trying to get this overturned, whether it's chipping away, electing certain judges or electing certain individuals that are in local and state governments to be able to do this. And I think that there's a part of the party that's your base. Like, these are your people, and to stay in power, you're going to do what you need to do to appease them, regardless of whether you actually believe that or not. Because a lot of the people who are Republicans are really people who should be Democrats, but they are susceptible to hate, and they're susceptible to because they feel so disenfranchised. The richer or more wealthy Republicans give them a scapegoat in certain people, whether it's minorities, whether it's LGBTQIA people, whoever it is, they're giving a scapegoat as to why that these people who should be potentially Democrats or liberal leaning, socially liberal, why they are not more successful. Oh, affirmative action, they're preventing me from going to college. Oh, you know, abortion, they're preventing us from having kids. And they're like, some of these people don't care. Some of these people actually do care. So I can't say that in and of itself is the failure, because even with the Democrat Party, like I said, like there are people who agree on certain things, disagree on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we all agree that we're not them. So I think that with the two-party system, that is kind of the problem that you have. But to go to your original question, which is why are we here, or how did we get here? I think that when Roe versus Wade happened, there was a visceral reaction for particularly evangelical or Christian folks, a lot of times in the South, that and it's not just the South, because it's also in the Bible Belt, like Indiana, Kentucky, those type of Ohio, those type of places, and even in some of the Western states, like I believe North Dakota, like Montana, places like that. But there's a lot of folks who, some of it was their base, but some of it is control. But in whatever the reason was, when Roe versus Wade happened, there was a concerted effort to try to overturn that however long. And no matter how long it took, they were willing to take that, which is why, like I said, when Casey versus Planned Parenthood come up, they're like, okay, well, the Supreme Court said we can't outlaw abortions. We're just going to say that that doctor can't give you an abortion, and that's the only doctor in town. Or we're going to say that, yeah, you can have an abortion, but did your husband sign this paper? Because if you didn't sign this paper, you can't have an abortion. Or did you read this literature? Because now we have a mandatory 3-day waiting period from when you come in, and we have to make sure that you watch this video telling you how your life is going to be ruined forever. And if you don't watch the video, then you can't get an abortion. So then they started doing stuff like that. And I think that at every turn, there was, for folks who believed in anti-abortion, whatever the reason was, or whatever the motivation was, they were always trying to figure out a way around it. Now, to your point about the checks and balances, it's difficult because the appointment of the Supreme Court justices, if the positions are vacant, technically the sitting president has a right to be able to nominate individuals for those vacancies. The problem is that, as I think someone mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Crystal, how Democrats do this respectability thing, where when it was Obama and there was a vacant seat, they told him that basically he couldn't nominate somebody because the people should decide who the next president was going to be, and that president should decide because it was too close in an election year. And the Democrats seemingly conceded that, being like, okay, well, I guess you're right. I guess because we're going to have an election, we really need to see what the people want. And so that was the first part of it. I hate to say it like this, and I know a lot of law folks are going to kill me for saying this, and this is not to blame at all, but I think that during Obama's tenure, there was a small push, maybe a private push, for Ruth Bader Ginsburg to retire or resign from her position. She did not. So the fact that she died during Trump's presidency while still being on the bench opened up another vacancy for Trump to be able to fill. And in the meantime, one thing that that folks really weren't even talking about is not even at the Supreme Court level, but the federal judiciary, meaning the circuit courts of appeals, the federal district courts. There were a ton of vacancies that were being filled with sometimes underqualified justices, or justices who are just so staunchly conservative that when you're a judge, you kind of have power to change things. And if and unless a plaintiff or defendant challenges on appeal certain issues, the judge's opinion stands and basically operate as if they're law. So it's like the checks and balances worked, but it's, if you're a Democrat and you're going to make these concessions, like, oh, well, I'm not going to nominate somebody, then now I just give you 2 picks, right? And that's all that you need to really sway the balance of a court. So what can happen, though, is the court can be expanded, the court can be reduced. The Congress is within its authority to say that we do not want the Supreme Court to be deciding certain type of issues like abortion. We don't want there to be, we don't want them deciding certain things like interracial marriages, contraceptions, LGBTQIA marriages, whatever. Congress is within its authority to do that, but they won't do that. So our check on that is the actual Supreme Court. So that's the check. But when we have all these doofuses filling up those seats, like it doesn't seem like much of a check, but that's what it is. Because if I'm a conservative person, this is absolutely a win for me. This is absolutely a win for my base. This is something to rally and mobilize folks to come out and continue to vote for me because look, I'm getting something done for you. On the flip side, and it's unfortunate that it had to get to this position, but I think that come November, a lot of the midterms, a lot of women who may have not thought anything of this right because it was always guaranteed to them, at least in the last 50 years. Now you might be actually having to make the decision of, am I going to keep this baby or not? Do I have enough money to go somewhere else to get, means or money to go get an abortion? And I think that a lot of women who otherwise maybe they really didn't care about this issue and this wasn't a voting issue for them prior to because you took that right for granted, I really think it might be. And not to just keep on drawing this out, but one more thing I want to say is that I think the practical impact of this is that places whose healthcare systems were already overwhelmed, places whose foster care and adoption systems were already overwhelmed, they are not going to be prepared for the influx of children that are going to be a part of this, because we see in states like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and not to just call those particular states out, because I really try to be cognitive of bias against Southern states and things like that. But when you have these states that are the highest poverty, highest in infant mortality, highest in maternal mortality, lowest in education and things like that, what do you think is going to happen when all of these women are going to be forced to have these children? Who's going to take care of them? Who's adopting these kids? You know what I mean? Like it's not like all these kids are going to be adopted. So we're going to have even more of a crisis that I don't even think will be realized until after the fact, after all these, like, what are we going to do with them? And then this is the same group of people who will tell you that we should not have social welfare benefits. They're going to tell you we shouldn't be paying for them. They're going to tell you that we should privatize education. They're going to tell you, why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Never mind the fact that you just made me have a kid that I didn't want to have, which could cause irreparable harm to both the parents and the kids. And then on top of that, you're not going to be able to feed them. You're not going to educate them. And what? So to me, and this part is my personal opinion, it's just giving way to working class. Like you're basically just creating worker bees for a capitalist system. And these people are going to be poor. They're going to be impoverished. You're going to pay them low wages because you're not going to raise the minimum wage. And lucky for you if you own a company, because now you can employ all these people who don't have any other choice.
Well said.
No, girl, go on that monologue. Because I didn't even know that Congress could decide what the Supreme Court took up.
They can decide specific issues. That's what makes it so much more infuriating, is because Congress can take the check on the Supreme Court is that Congress can determine what issues are in the purview of the Supreme Court. So it's like, that's the check that they have on the Supreme Court. And in reverse, the check that the Supreme Court has on the Congress is that if Congress passes a law, if they pass a law, the Supreme Court's power is to determine whether or not that law is constitutional based on the rules that we live by. But if Congress sets the rules, all you can say is if it's constitutional, yes or no. Now, what they said was, we're going to let states decide. But if Congress passes a law tomorrow, the only question is it constitutional? And yes, it is absolutely within the Congress's purview to codify a law. So that's why it's infuriating, is because there are mechanisms in place for these things to happen. It's just not happening. Like, it's giving, we don't know what we're doing.
So, and because you're so informed, so I just want to make sure I'm speaking intelligently, because I know that when Obama was in power, he had, like, I know it was a real small window, but he had a real small window where he had House and Senate. And I know at some point there was a push to codify Roe v. Wade into law, and he made that campaign promise and didn't keep it. And then I know that it faded away. So even if, for whatever reason, votes, blah, 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 you don't want to upset the moderates, blah, 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 he didn't want to push Roe v. Wade into law, what he could have had the Senate and the House do is at least say, well, the Supreme Court can't hear a case regarding abortion. He at least could have done that.
So, I mean, he could have pushed for that. It would not have been up to him. It would have been up to the Congress pretty much
right,
itself.
But he could have,
but yeah, as the leader of the party,
at some point we had that Democratic majority, so we could have got it done.
Yes, it could. Yes, to answer your question, could it have been done? Yes, and it did not get done. Like a lot of these things could have gotten done did not get done. So now what we're going to have to do is rely on local and state elections to determine whether abortion is going to be legal on a state by state basis.
Right.
So for example, in Michigan, I know this, and I'm from Detroit, the issue is on the ballot. But the thing is that if there's no federal protection for it and it doesn't end up passing by the vote of the people, then what? You got to go to, everyone's going to go to Chicago and Illinois, because I believe Illinois is one of the only states in the Midwest, period, who is allowing abortions.
And they're not equipped for that.
There's going to be an influx of folks there. Like it's going to be overwhelmed. And also, sorry, I just want to say this one last thing before I forget.
Oh, that's fine.
One thing that I'm really concerned about, and a friend of mine brought this up on Instagram last week, is data privacy, because the concern about how are they going to enforce this? Like, not as you said it, like it's one thing for you to say, I can't get an abortion and I can't have an abortion facility and all these things. But if I'm a pregnant woman, but I believe Missouri was a state that has what we call a long arm statute, which basically means if you do something in another state and you're a resident of this state, you can be in trouble in this state. How are you going to enforce that? Are you just pulling over pregnant women? Are you going to subpoena my period trackers? Are you going to subpoena my medical records? Like, what exactly are you going to do to enforce this? And kudos, because I've seen a lot of prosecutors on Twitter say that they're actively not going to prosecute this. But at the same time, I have seen some prosecutors on the news saying that they're specifically going to enforce this. And it's like, how are you going to do that? And also, because as lawyers, we have subpoena power. We are within our right as attorneys to be able to subpoena medical information from you. So if I say, unless you can tell the judge you have a good reason for me not to go enforce this law, if I say to you, hey, Crystal, send me that period tracker because I think you might have an abortion. I have reason to believe based on your activity that you might be able to get an abortion.
Wow.
That's a way for me to find out. Potentially.
Wow.
So how are we going to, what are we going to do about that? And then what does that do for doctors? Like, you know what I mean? Are they going to be able to giving up their records all the time? Like, are they going to just let,
well, apparently we don't have a right to privacy because they didn't write that word in the Constitution.
Yeah.
They didn't write a lot of words in the Constitution. Like, so it's just like, but it's interesting because in the very same week, the Supreme Court said that there's a federal right to concealed carry. So it's just like, how are you saying that people don't have a right to bodily autonomy and states should decide that, but y'all just gonna give people the right to guns? Like,
you and I are sharing the exact same wavelength, because I literally have an article up right here on my other monitor that's literally talking about the bill with the concealed weapon without a permit, like, and specifically I'm looking at Louisiana right now, but this passed in other places. And you went and did this after Roe v. Wade. Meanwhile, there's no formula on the shelves, nothing to take care of these kids, and you basically said fuck you to all the high school children.
And if I'm not mistaken, because this is why this feels like, and I don't want to, like, I hate doomsday shit, but y'all, we in trouble. Like, this is some fuck shit. Yeah. And it wasn't like before, and I feel like they did this in order, because isn't it now that it's not that cops don't have to read you your Miranda rights, but if they forget to, that can no longer be an excuse for you to get a case thrown out. Am I correct in how that went down?
Kind of. So what happened is that there's two things about the Miranda rights. First thing is that if the cop doesn't read you your Miranda rights, let's just say, if you go to trial, you can say, hey, any information, any confession, any statement that was obtained without my Miranda rights has to be thrown out now. So let's just say I killed somebody. Would Trump say I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue? If I said I shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, but you didn't read me my Miranda rights when you arrested me, and I said that after the fact, that whole confession gets thrown out. What it used to be was that if you didn't read me my Miranda rights, cop, my recourse, my civil recourse is that I'm now able to sue you for that civilly. I'm able to sue you civilly because you charged me, you brought me up, you ruined my reputation, I suffered some type of harm, maybe I got arrested. Like, I'm able to recoup what you took from me by violating my rights. What they got rid of was me being able to sue the government for that violation. So your confession will still get thrown out in a criminal proceeding, but now I can't sue you. So if you arrest me, let's just say, and now my name is all on the internet and I lost my job and I lost my money and my wife, husband left me or whatever, based on this confession that you improperly obtained, yeah, the confession is going to get thrown out. They're like, okay, sorry about that. Go home. But you can't sue them for that. That's what that says.
So they took away the accountability.
They took away the right for you to sue them civilly for that violation.
And I feel like, and see, this is where it goes to like places where the education level is low, and it doesn't matter where, because you just explained that really well. And I'm not a dumb person, and I had a kind of understanding about it, like the kind of understanding that anybody does. You Google some shit, you try to look it up, you try to understand it, whatever. A lot of y'all, education levels are low. So it's real easy now for a cop to just be like, well, I ain't got to reach human rights at all. And just fucking lie. And this is not an unrealistic situation because they do it all the fucking time now.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, and somebody who has not, don't listen to this podcast, you should, or is just not well versed, will not know any better. They will not, they'll just think that, well, the Supreme Court passed a law, especially because the way the news articles title things, and lots of us are guilty. We'll just read a headline. We won't read a fucking article. So it just feels like this. It feels very much like capitalism is the party of the government, whether you are Democrat or Republican. And I understand there are differences, and we all know what the differences are. But when I have a party who supposedly is all about me and all about my rights and yada, 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 and wants to say all the right things, but when they have the power to do something, does nothing, that leads me to question what the hell you actually stand for. But when it comes to protecting certain things that keep that cog going, y'all act mad quick.
Yeah.
Y'all act real quick. And when it comes to any of these other issues you so passionate about, you thoughts and prayers, and you're like, oh, I'm so mad, we got to get them and come to the polls in November and just help us get Georgia and blah, 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 blah. You say all these right things, but when it comes to actually doing something, y'all like, nah. But a couple of protesters stand outside of Brett's house, you like, oh shit, we got to protect him.
Also, on that note, in the concealed weapons case, it was interesting because I believe Justice Thomas had wrote in his opinion, like basically where people could not have guns, and he put basically like at the courthouses, which is interesting because just prior, the Senate, I believe, had passed a measure about how the fact that people can't really have guns or certain arms around the Supreme Court justice's home. So I'm like, so your home is protected, justices, your jobs are protected, justices, and he conveniently did not put in Loving v. Virginia and the rights that he said he wanted to overturn, which was the case about interracial marriage, while saying that we should get rid of same-sex marriage, we should get rid of contraceptions, we should get rid of abortion. So I'm like, so specifically on Justice Thomas, everything that matters for him specifically, his job, his home, his marriage, all of those things are protected and were not challenged at all. But for everyone else, that's going to impact us immediately, like very immediately. So,
well, since you brought it up, let's go to the Clarence Thomas statement. You're not gonna call him a brother, good brother. He's a clown.
Fuck him.
He's a alleged sexual assault perpetrator.
I believe Rosa Parks and Anita Hill tried to warn us about this motherfucker, and patriarchy at work.
He shouldn't be sitting on the bench after what his wife did.
Nope, that shouldn't happen either. But apparently, you get that job for life. It don't matter what you do while you want it.
So Clarence Thomas said, and I quote, "Our abortion precedents are grievously wrong and should be overruled." Thomas then wrote, "The idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment understood the right to due process clause to protect the right to abortion is farcical." And then I'm going back to what more he said. He said, "As the origins of jurisprudence readily demonstrate, the punitive right to abortion is a creation that should be undone." And if you think that was all he said, he had a lot more to say. Let's see what he said. "The Constitution does not constrain the state's abilities to regulate or even prohibit abortion. This court created the right to abortion based on an anamorphic, unwritten right to privacy," he wrote.
The same right to privacy that allow him to get married.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? And this whole historically, it's not like a thing. I actually looked it up, and inspired by, there was this amazing historian on Twitter who did a whole thread. Back in the day, they was getting abortions all the time. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, abortions were not looked at the way they are now. What happened? religion.
Mm-hmm.
There was a religious push, and that's where, so him saying like it's not history, it's not this, that, let me tell you something, motherfucker. The people who wrote the Constitution did not want your ass on the Supreme Court. So the fact that you trying to roll
But
back,
they didn't want him to be a person. Like,
right?
what are you
Like, you know
talking
what I'm
about?
saying? I mean, if
Like,
we're
you're supposed to be
going
a slave right now. Like, what do you mean?
we're going to interpret the Constitution this literally, you in trouble. you in big trouble.
And it's crazy because some of the original framers were saying how the Constitution literally should be updated like every 20 or 30 years because they did not want the dead reaching out from their grave and controlling modern times. Like they specifically said that. I'm just like, y'all are very selective about the history that you're choosing to implement, but the arguments themselves are just, to me, they're just not historically sound. Like they're just not. But also, if you're just going to overturn precedent because you felt that an opinion was wrong or wrongly decided, where do you stop? Like, how do we know what other opinions that you think are inappropriate?
Right.
Yeah. And that goes to what Clarence Thomas further said about things like, hey, let's go for same-sex marriage and other things like that. And a lot of hubbub has been said lately about a lot of these type of things. And it's troubling. And my big problem with it is when you have a person like Clarence Thomas, who is in the highest court of the land, making the statements that he's making, clearly showing bias, that is a fundamental problem.
Yeah.
It should be. Everybody should be concerned about that.
It will always be, because when you think about it, honestly, when you want to go into morals, we should not have this Constitution at all, because the people who made it were good with mass genocide. They were fine with it. So I'm like, we shouldn't have this at all.
Yeah, I think
it should have been updated. It should have been changed.
I feel updated.
Yeah, I feel like maybe not right now, because I'm a little nervous about if they changed it right now. But like, I am disheartened only because I think locally, I think a lot of elections are going to matter to people. Like you said, Anna, like on local levels, I think people are going to get out and start paying attention, especially like in purple states. The way they've kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Zoned voting districts in some of these red states is problematic in itself. If y'all look at what happened to Florida, where they literally,
I'm aware.
They did, They did some secret shit behind closed doors to like rezone a whole map to get rid of a Democratic district and get rid of a seat. So like, there's a lot. I feel like locally there's a lot of fights to be had on the more like Senate, House, presidential level. There is a concern, but I don't know if it's a concern enough for me to be like, I'm gonna vote for you again. And I'm just being real. I am honest to God, just being real, because if I'm gonna go to bat for a Democrat again, then I need to know that if I put you in this fucking chair, you're going to do your fucking job. That's what I need to know. And it's very clear that Biden is not. He doesn't, he's just fucking not. He is not. So let's say he gets reelected. What the fuck is he going to do? Nothing. It's very clear that he's just going to let these Republicans keep walking all the fuck over him. So what the fuck am I voting for? What is the point of me doing this? And I think that's where a lot of Democrats are at. And the Democratic Party needs to get its shit together and figure out the fucking message, because we did it. We came en masse to the polls. We had this fight for you. I mean, everybody
did it already.
Like, we fucking did it. Like, I mean, Democrats, like, not me, because I don't always vote. I'm just being real with you. Sometimes I'm like, I don't do that too evil shit because the system is fucked and y'all need to figure it the fuck out. But I came and voted for Mr. Handsy fucking racist Joe Biden because Trump was worse. Let's just be real. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. That man plays to a crowd. He plays to a fucking crowd. Like, listen, this was the same man who looked Anita Hill in her face and like, he is why Clarence is on the fucking bench. Biden was a big reason why. And sure, when he was running, he called her up and said, sorry. I equate that to Joe Manchin being like, oh shit, they lied. Like, you believe him? Y'all didn't know?
Like Susan Collins.
Right.
He told me in my office he wasn't gonna do that. I'm like, oh, really?
Y'all like for real? Like, stop. Like, I need voters to stop being dumb. And I need Democrats to have the fucking balls to stand up to Republicans and actually do something. Otherwise, they're in trouble. I really think
the problem with Democrats is they're always worried about the next election. We got to win the next election. We got to win the next election. They're never worried about, okay, now that we've won this election, what the fuck are we going to do to stay in power?
Right.
They just literally go, okay, we won this election. So now let's look at the next election. What can we do? Like, no, grow some fucking balls.
Right.
Stop letting the Republicans walk all over you.
Yeah.
I gotta give props where props is done, dude. Trump literally tried to overthrow a goddamn country to stay in power.
That's what I'm saying. Where
Man,
And
that
nothing
energy?
happened to him. Nothing even happened
My-
to
my
him.
man
That's the
straight
crazy
up
part.
said-
Nothing even happened to him.
I mean, he tried to grab the steering wheel of the SUV that he was in and was like, take me to the Capitol. I'm the fucking president of the United States.
And can you imagine though, if the people that decided, like the Department of Justice, they were like, we will resign if you do this. Can you imagine though, if so many people had not had the gall to be like, we cannot go this far, because it could have happened. Like it legitimately could have happened. Like if he did not leave, what was we gonna do? Who's gonna send in the National Guard? Who's gonna send in the army? You the president, you're the commander in chief. Who's gonna remove you? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody is gonna remove
Shit,
you.
it wasn't Democrats because we.
Who's gonna put you
We can't
out?
do that. Right.
Who is gonna put you out?
Democrats are too afraid to get their hands dirty.
Yeah. I'm like, because another thing about Congress is Congress controls the purse strings. So if there's a Democrat controlled majority, and this is where I probably wouldn't be a politician because this is kind of extreme, but if it's me, I'm like, listen, states that don't want to have abortion, reproductive health rights, y'all not getting any federal funding for any kind of healthcare. And if you don't have any healthcare, all your people die. I really don't want them to die, but I really want people to have reproductive health care.
Right.
So we're just not going to pay for that. And we're not going to pay for this. And we're not going to pay for anything related to any type of healthcare because this is a part of it. And if you're going to take federal funding, you're going to include this in it. Like Congress has the authority to attach stipulations on money that they give to states. They have the authority to do that.
Right.
And that's a way to force the hand of a state. But
They
again,
need to start leveraging it. They do. Republicans aren't hesitating.
they're not. They told that Republicans do whatever they want to do. They do
Literally.
whatever they want to do. They protect their own. We got child molesters in Congress. They still there. We got people part of a coup up in Congress. They still there. We got all types of stuff. We even have sitting members of the Supreme Court, their spouses actively interfering and trying to overturn elections and propose an alternate slate of electors. Emphasis on alternate, meaning the ones that we didn't pick. Like it's all rampant through the party and they don't care. And you know what Mitch McConnell gonna do? Long as y'all show up to vote, I don't care what y'all do, as long as we have the numbers. Like he can be mad and whatever, but like, what are they gonna do? And if somebody try to expose them, like that Madison Cawthorn boy who was like, oh, they're having sex-fueled orgies and all this, and a guy who's over the drug and opioid like trying to fix the problem, he's literally doing cocaine. You know what they did? They blackmailed him and made sure he didn't win that next election because they would rather kick somebody out who's going to shine light on the problem than actually fix the problem and purge them of all of this foolery. So it's just like, listen, the ship got to get tighter. I don't know what page Democrats need to be on. Democrats, progressive, they feel like they have all this infighting, but I'm like, why is it that we can't even just have one common goal that everybody's on the same page about? And maybe abortion is that issue, because I think that is an issue that's going to drive people out to vote, particularly women, particularly white women who may not have otherwise felt that they were affected by some of this stuff. But when you sitting up here trying to figure out whether you're going to have a baby and how you're going to be able to make your way from Louisiana to New Jersey to not have the baby, maybe, something might be different.
Hope so. Because at this point, I don't know what it's going to take. Honestly, I just don't. I don't know what is going to push Democrats to just be able to take. I mean, I just read about what's going on in your state, Devlin, and I've got family there, and I'm like, y'all need to get the fuck out. Because DeSantis is literally doing whatever the fuck he wants. And he might be president.
He might actually be president.
Yeah, because he's just, I mean, it shouldn't be this hard for Democrats to figure it out. It honestly shouldn't. It just, I don't know like what this white moderate little kind of group is that y'all trying to play to, but if it's the middle class, they're dying. The middle class is literally being wiped out. So if
Mhm.
that is the majority of the Democrats' base, if it's that, comfortable white moderate who, kind of doesn't want to ruffle feathers, but kind of wants you to have rights, but as long as you don't protest too loud and make sure that, I can get to work, you can do it. Like if it's that group, they are literally getting snuffed out. Like recession is here. Recession is here. Food shortages are here. Like money's getting mad tight. So like if the goal for both parties was to just fuck us, y'all doing great. Y'all doing fucking great. But if Democrats are actually trying to get something done, they better get it fucking done, because we about to be a theocracy. Like there's no way around it. If Democrats do not get their shit together, we are going to be a theocracy. And I don't want to hear you didn't vote for us as the reason. I swear to God, first person who says I'm gonna punch him, I'm gonna just punch him, because I'm over that. I'm over that.
Yeah.
All this power they had that they just don't fucking use, you got me fucked up. The answer is to just go vote harder.
I'm also very tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. I'm sure we've all have been told this before, is you're overreacting. This won't happen.
Oh yeah, that shit gotta end. Like it has happened. So you can't keep saying we're overreacting if it's already happened. No, it's not overreacting anymore.
Anybody who said you were overreacting after what happened on January 6th also needed to be slapped. Because who thought that Confederate flag wasn't even in that building during the Civil War. Holy shit. Some fucking Trump supporter just walked it through. You talk about the Constitution and people who wrote it. There's motherfuckers that was rolling over in their grave like, oh, like, come on. Like,
I also thought, is it that easy to break into the Capitol? Because they just did a little number with the window. I'm like, ain't that supposed to be bulletproof? Like, how y'all just get up in there? Like, it just looked like they knocked the door 2 times and it just opened up. I'm like, can they do that? Like, where is the... And also, why didn't they get shot on sight? Like, why did no one get shot? Except the one Ashley Babbitt girl, and she was literally trying to climb in like a door or a window or something.
Apparently it is that easy to take over Congress, because that happened mad fast. They just rolled up.
Imagine if that had been a foreign nation, like y'all would have immediately declared war. Like that would have been an act of war where you're actively attacking the Capitol. But like, no, it's just Trump and his boys, and he want to go see him. So just turn the car around.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
I got nothing for that.
Well, on the bright side, they're gonna make USB-C the universal charger for the United States.
No, they not.
I don't even think they get that done now.
That's what they're worried about right now.
I'm glad that's what they're talking about in Congress right now. That's great.
Gas like $6 a gallon, costs more than crack.
Yeah,
crack. They like it's too
gas is
expensive.
$8 a gallon out here in California.
Fuck that.
Literally in LA. Well, it is LA, so you can shoot. So you will.
Yeah.
You know, it happens. People get shot all the time. People siphon, gas all the time too. It's fucking crazy out here.
You might have to steal with these kind of prices.
Gas, higher than crack.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like
it's so wild.
People are fucking nuts.
He like people can't even afford crack anymore. That's insane.
Yeah.
We need more brave people for real though. We do, because I talk to too many people who have this, like, the line is too loose. Like, I kind of, I'm pro-life, so I'm kind of happy with this decision. And I'm like, okay, but right to privacy is gone. And they're literally coming after contraception next. So if you're all like, well, just don't have a child or have safe sex, they're literally going to take away the ability for that to happen.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Do pro-lifers actually think that if you are pro-choice, then you are pro-abortion? Because there's two different things.
No,
you can be pro-choice, which means that you are for everyone having their own fucking choice. And God forbid, we have our own choices, because didn't their God give us free will? Their God gave us free will, but they don't want us to have free will. Being pro-choice and pro-abortion are two different things.
They gave us free will, but we're supposed to use our free will strictly for the motherfucker above's purposes.
Right.
I just want to know when God told y'all was going to be in charge. That's what I want to know. I'm like, well, if God is going to be the judge, why are you trying to figure out what I should be doing? He said, don't judge.
Right.
And you committing the first sin. So I'm just trying to figure out, where's your name? Where's your name? Where were you appointed captain of the ship? Because you weren't.
Well, half
Mhm.
of the time, actual Christians don't understand what they're actually worshiping.
Mm-mm.
And this is a whole linguist thing. And I'm sorry to go on a tangent.
Please go on this tangent.
I'm sorry, I'm getting so angry. The large majority of Christians favor the King James Bible. The King James Bible is notorious in the linguistic community, so we can slam the shit out of it because it's fun, because there are so many shocking mistranslations of this Bible, because it was written for the sole purpose of an agenda. They didn't give a damn about translating it properly. They wanted to have a piece of paper that had exactly what King James wanted. That was it. That was it.
You are literally worshiping a book that don't even say what you think it said, because then the motherfucker speak the language you translated it from.
And then the whole other argument is the word homosexual didn't even appear in the Bible until 1946. So you guys have no idea what you're actually worshiping. You're just swallowing the Kool-Aid. Sorry.
No, you're 100% right. I have pointed out to many people that how people misinterpret the Bible and just make up shit that they want it to say. Like, oh, this is what it said. Like, no, it isn't.
And the crazy part is Trump don't even read it. I'm like, y'all going the hardest for him. He don't even, whatever it says,
He'll pose
he don't
with
even
it.
read it.
Upside
He
down.
pose with it.
He don't even read it. Like, that's the crazy part. I'm like, you be going so hard for this book that he don't even know what's in it. Your leader has no idea what's even, he don't know if it's a lie or not. Why? 2 Corinthians. He has no idea. He's never read it. He's never read it.
I don't
if he
understand
went to
why
that church, he
people buy
might
it.
burst into flames.
That cat might read.
Like,
he might
fucking
read
I
the
wish.
source before he read the Bible.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and it's so fucking obvious that he hasn't read it. Like, people are literally driving me. I know that there are a lot of Republicans. Y'all cannot all be this fucking dumb. You can't. I have what, and because I don't trust me, I literally watch those interviews, because sometimes you be seeing stuff and you like, no, the fuck he didn't. So you got to go watch the interview, because you like, no, the fuck he didn't say that out loud on TV. And then hey, yes, the fuck he did.
Do you remember when he was in office? Every single day, I wake up, something be trending on Twitter, and I'm like, I know Trump said this. I know he said something. He says, and then you go to his Twitter, anything is literally trending because he says something dumb at 4:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning. He's just on the toilet tweeting, just up tweeting, not doing nothing, just talking to people. Like, and it's honestly, it's sad, because now we're going to have somebody like Ron DeSantis, who will probably be a formidable opponent, because he's like Trump light, where he's Trump without all the drama. Like, he's don't seem to be cheating on his wife and kids, and he seems to be, as sophisticated as somebody saying and doing what he does. That's can be danger.
Yeah.
So like, you don't really know what that man is capable of, because he has just the same wacky ideology, and but he's palatable for a lot of folks. So,
and that really was the
problem.
It's true though, because that really was the concern, like for a lot of people, like after we finally got Trump out, was who's going to be the next Trump? Because literally all you need is somebody who can rile up Trump's base, but's a bit more articulate, is smart, is not a fucking idiot, not a fucking like complete and utter narcissist. So somebody like DeSantis fits that fucking bill. And listen, I don't want him to be president, but I want the president that I have in office to do something with the power they have right fucking now. Otherwise, I'm like, let's just let this motherfucker burn. And I know what the fuck I'm saying, but it's not like people aren't going to suffer anyway. It's not like they're not suffering right now. If I have a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic presidency, and we are look at the state of the world right fucking now, and you ask how much worse it's going to get, Democrats aren't stopping it. They are doing literally nothing to stop it from happening right now. So why the fuck should I believe you if you tell me I just need 2 more people to fix it? Why? And that is the messaging that Democrats have got to work on. Otherwise, we about to get DeSantis. And I'm like, fuck it. Let's just let this motherfucker go, because it's broke. It's broke as shit.
I'm going to say this
dirty enough,
because I thought this during the last election. I was like, it's a catch-22, because Trump was terrible, awful president. I think you can't even debate that. You can look at all the stuff that's happening now. You're like, yeah, this is terrible. This is not good. But you can remember, there was a time when we were having riots all the time in the United States. It was a common occurrence. We were seeing wild stuff go on. So when I saw that during the election, I'm like, I don't want this dude as my president. But at the same time, I also felt like if he loses, Joe Biden's not going to be able to fix all these problems he's caused. And he might come back 2024 and run again and win because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That worried me. And then I looked at the fact that, like, on the same notion, if he wins, he's going to mess up this country even more.
Right.
Mhm.
But maybe it's gotten to the point where this country needs to fail to succeed.
I honestly think it does. I mean, because even Anna was talking earlier about how easily it is to appoint a judge on the federal circuit that just has your same, religious beliefs. Like, it's just that easy to get somebody in here who's a fucking Bible thumper who can make laws. If our system is that fucking weak, it needs to be set the fuck on fire. And that's just the long and short of it. It just does.
Yeah, maybe total failure and seeing that something just doesn't work will make people wake up and say, you know what, we need a radical change to make
They need to
things
put
better.
term limits on everybody.
I-
Right.
No more of these lifers.
Yeah, fact.
And
mean,
I don't
how you
believe that
been doing
anybody
this?
up on Capitol Hill should be being paid for what they do, because
That part.
our founding fathers, and I know they had their own problems, but they volunteered their time because
Right.
they wanted a better country than what they had. If you want a better country, why are you able to give yourself a raise? I'm not able to give myself a raise at Warner Brothers.
That
So
part. Boy,
why are
bought
they
on that
allowed?
shit real quick too.
Why are they allowed? You're not doing shit. You have literally done absolutely nothing since
You want to
you
know who said exactly that? Lindsey Graham in 1992, when he was at the House of Representatives, he argued for term limits. And 2022, literally decades later, here he is still in Congress. Like,
Yeah,
because
I
it's a power
I
grab.
do not like Lindsey Graham at all, but I will agree with him on that.
You
There
like a
needs to be
broken
term
clock
limits.
is right twice a day.
Mhm.
What I would like to just point out is that there are so many people who have been in Congress longer than I have been alive. Like, I'm like, the fact that you have spent more than half of your life making rules for others,
Mhm.
like that does not really sit well with me. I'm like, even on both sides, I'm like Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, what's the
Chuck Schumer.
Feinstein, Schumer, like all
Yeah.
of them. Like, I'm just like, it's not even to be like ageist or anything, but I'm just like, at the same time, the fact that there was a congressional hearing on tech and some certain Congress people didn't even know how Facebook really worked. I was just like, bro, how do we think that we're going to regulate anything when y'all don't even, like, y'all just truly don't know, and y'all won't give up these seats. Y'all
Right.
won't give up these seats because y'all like, oh, well, what if somebody, well, like, we got you and not a lot changed, and we've had you for 40 years, like 40 years, 40 years. There have people that have come and gone, and you're still there. You're
Yeah.
still there.
Don't get me on my rant started about this shit.
They
I've
should
said it
get,
for the
I
longest.
think they should get paid minimum wage. And I think they also
Mhm.
should have, them and their immediate family members, including grandparents, should all have to divest all stocks. Like, I don't even think you should be able to hold stocks as a
Facts.
federal congressperson.
Yep.
Like, you
I
shouldn't
agree.
be able to hold any assets. And if you do hold assets, they should be in a private trust that is a transparent trust that is visible to the public. Like,
Mhm.
I need to see where the funds are being allocated to, how much return on profit that you're or return on investment that you're making. We
Mhm.
need to be able to see that. You shouldn't be able to spend it, and you should live off minimum wage.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't be paying for you for housing. You
Nope.
shouldn't get any gifts. Anything that you get should be declared, and you need to be in the lunch line with everybody else. Because if you're a public servant, it's giving
Right.
that you're not. Like,
Right.
obviously you're not. So all these dinners and stuff like that, like, no, I think there should be a lot more federal transparency, because what they do is there were so many senators that literally made so much money off the pandemic. Nothing happened to them. They knew that certain stocks were going to be traded, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. They knew that the values of those stocks were going to increase, and they had their family members buy into them.
That is
Right.
so
Everybody that's-
wild.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
no,
Oh yeah.
no. And also the two, like Manchin and Sinema, y'all gotta blackmail them. I'm like, y'all see how Republicans got Cawthorn out of there. Joe Manchin, he been in West Virginia. It's something.
You
else.
know there's
y'all,
something.
Y'all
Oh,
have
yeah.
to. But his daughter came up off the EpiPen, right? Like, she was the one who was charging like 2 or 3 times the price of a medically necessary drug so that she could come up on that. But I'm just like, but we won't. Why we don't blackmail them? He's done something. We know he's done something. Like, we know he's done something, but we need to just figure out a way to get them up out of there, because I'm like, y'all letting him control the party. But, you know, if somebody else tries to wield that same power, be like, no, I'm not voting for that. Y'all mad at them. Be mad at Joe more than you mad at me for exercising my same power. Like, facts. I'm not voting with this either. Like, unless we get certain stuff done, hold your vote hostage. That's why we elected you.
Facts. I mean, that's literally where I'm at. Listen, people, we just got to start building communities. We just got to get ready to take care of each other, because it feels like it doesn't matter what we do. Republicans rolling this right now. So either Democrats are going to get some fucking balls and stand up and fix it. And they got, when's Mister? They got till November. I want to see some shit from now. If I see the same fucking bullshit that I've been seeing, I'm not voting for one of you. You can kiss my whole ass. You can kiss my whole ass. It can burn. I'm gonna get my community.
Throw us a bone. They could throw us one bone. The student loans thing would have been an easy, like, a lot of people, that would have been an easy reprieve for a lot of people, especially during inflation, especially during an impending recession. And the thing is that, of course, everybody wants all their student loans forgiven, right? Like, okay, we all have student loans. We all want them, for all of them forgiven, but whatever. But even if you gave folks $10,000, like, for some people that might not be a lot, but like, it's still enough to take off some interest or something. Right. But the fact that y'all can't even do that, like, that's the stuff we can agree on as a party. Like, we don't agree on everything. Progressives and moderates, or whoever you want to call them, they don't agree on everything. But we all agree on student loans being out of control. But like, what? Not Joe, like, I don't know if I have congressional authority. And the thing is that's frustrating from a legal perspective is, like I said, if there was an executive order, then the constitutionality of that would have to be litigated. And at the very least, we know that that litigation is going to last longer than the time he's in office. And at the moment that everybody got $10,000 wiped from them, and then it takes 5 more years for a court to determine whether that's true or not, society is going to, you know, be like, we got rid of this. Like, we got rid of this already. Like, we can obviously do this, and it's not going to be popular. Now you are putting a Supreme Court or whatever other judiciary to analyze, like, okay, should we get rid of this? Yes or no? When it's now very popular. So it's like, the tools are in the toolbox, but it's they just looking at them. They're like, I don't really think we should use any of these. Yeah.
Let's go negotiate. But that's back to you said it. We need fresh blood in there. We do, because I feel like if you're not on the ground with us, there's a perspective that you just don't have. Like, it's hard enough for us to just like empathize with each other on, like, and I feel like, you know, we all kind of in the same, you know, kind of money bracket or whatever. Maybe not Anna because she's a lawyer, but like all kind of in the same. Do not do that. I'm playing. But like
lawyers be broke.
I feel you. But there's like, you know, there's a perspective that happens on the street that Nancy Pelosi sure the fuck have, Chuck Schumer, all them, they just don't have that perspective anymore. It's gone. Maybe they did have it, but what are we, you know, 40, 50 fucking years later, we all know how our grandparents are. We all know how they are. And it's not like, it's not supposed to be a mean thing, but it's just like shit changes.
But why do you think that it's not going to work without you? Like, that, to me, that's the question that was for RBG. Ego. That was the question for Nancy Pelosi, for Chuck Schumer, for Mitch McConnell, for Kevin McCarthy, for all of y'all. It's like, why do you think that this system cannot work without you being here? Like, why do you think that things cannot get done? Exactly. Why do you think that things can't get done without you specifically being here?
Right.
Like,
also, why are they not grooming the future?
Exactly.
If you feel like you can't, if you can't feel like it's not going to be done right if you're not here, why not you build up the future so it can be done right while you're not here? It's just the whole power grab.
It's literally, and that's literally what we're looking at. So we've got motherfuckers who are stingy in power, stuck in these fucking boomer mindsets that are trying to tell me that the only way to fix rising gas prices in a recession and the fact that Republicans do whatever they fucking want is to just put another one in office.
Yeah.
And they will. And Republicans toe the line. You got to give them credit. Like,
oh yeah.
And they get even more and more extreme. Like, they
are saying shit now that is just like, you would have thought that 30 years ago somebody said that on TV. You'd have been like,
well,
the fuck?
Senator John Cornyn from Texas just said after after Clarence Thomas's concurrence in that Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, where Justice Thomas talked about rolling back contraceptive, rolling back gay marriage, etc. John Cornyn was like, and while we at it, why don't we just get rid of Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus Board of Education, which is segregation? I'm like, so that's where we're going with this. We're talking about integration in schools. But again, if that was your plan the whole time, and nobody would like, it wasn't, so many things have happened that it did not cause that big of a stir, because everybody like, well, you know, he's crazy. Like there was also like, they were talking about, I forget who was up there with Trump, one candidate, she was talking about like basically the abortion, anti-abortion thing is going to make more white babies. And I'm like, so now y'all being honest. And Trump, what Trump did to me was Trump allowed people to say what they were saying in the dark in public. I'm like, oh, so y'all can say this out loud now. Y'all really don't want us in y'all spaces. Y'all really don't want us to be here. You don't want us to have equal rights. You really feel like it's our fault that your kid can't go to college just because I'm at college. Like, so we're starting to see that. And it's crazy because we built this bitch for free. Like, you know what I'm saying? Slaves built this country. Like, the only reason we even have the capitalistic type of country that we have was because we had jump-started our economy with an influx of free labor. That's the only difference between us and other countries, is that the USSR, now Russia, could not be what America was, is because they did not have an influx of free labor to build all of the things that we now take for granted.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, babe.
What you were saying, Anna, about how he made it okay to say things out loud, what was being said in the dark. It's so disturbing, because I'll always remember during, Trump's reign, things that are like much closer to home, and I won't name any names, but like you see a whole other sides of your family, and you don't know who you're looking at anymore. So now you have to serious question of, do I just cut you out of my life entirely? Do I try and help you see what your flaws, like, what am I supposed to do here? And I'm still actively fighting with that now, especially with the Roe v. Wade, and it's like screaming into a void. You're not getting through, and you're not getting through, but something keeps telling you to try, and you're just like, it's a vicious circle.
Yeah,
scary and sad, honestly.
I mean, on one hand, I'm kind of glad that they're coming out of the shadows, because I want to be able to see who the fuck you are. On the other hand, it's hard, because I think a lot of us have family members that you're just like, oh shit, oh really? And now we have to deal with that. And I know that we as a people are literally my mental health is not great. And I know a lot of people isn't either, because, we just pandemic, and then now recession, and, now all this shit. So like, I know everybody is like, and it's just me and Hannah, and we got a dog, and I can't imagine what it's like for a single mother right now. I can't imagine what it's like for a family. I can't imagine what it's like for a middle-class family. Like I empathize so hard with everybody. And I know that a lot of people who are screaming to vote feel very helpless. And I know that a lot of people think that that is the only way, because this problem is so fucking big, and it's really clear how big it is. I feel that weight myself. So I can't even imagine somebody who has always believed that if you just showed up and you got in line and you punched that ticket, everything would be okay, seeing that now it's not enough. So I understand why a lot of people are kind of doubling down, and I see a lot of infighting with people pointing fingers, and God forbid we didn't fucking vote for Hillary, because if we'd have just voted for Hillary, everything would be guns, everything would be fucking puppies and unicorns. And I'm sorry if you believe that, but it's not true. But whatever helps you sleep at night is fine. But I think I really need people to understand that this Roe v. Wade thing is like, kind of like, it's almost like Pandora's box now fully opened, and this train isn't going to stop. And if you think that the only way to fix this train is to vote Democrat, I need you to understand it's not. I desperately need people to understand that it's not, because if your current leadership is unwilling to stand up right now, why the fuck do you think they're suddenly going to in November? This is the mindset that I don't understand. If nobody is standing up right now, if you have people that you have empowered who have power to do things right now are doing nothing but sending you a fucking fundraising email and telling you to blame people who didn't vote for fucking Hillary, if that's what the leadership message is. You do not have a leader. You have another person who is enforcing a capitalistic system that is going to wipe you out. It is going to wipe you the fuck out. So I need people to be willing to take all this fucking vote energy. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying that can't be the only thing we do. If you do not hold these people's feet to the flame right fucking now, nothing is going to happen in November. Not a fucking thing.
That's a very fair and valid point that I completely agree with you. You have to hold people accountable. I think a lot of people have not been holding people accountable, and that's why we are where we're at today. So, any final thoughts from any of you before we go?
Do more than
Go
just
ahead.
vote.
I said enough.
I'd say do more than just vote. Get educated yourself. It also pays to look at women's rights and abortion rights and LGBT rights across the world and educate yourself on what's illegal there, what's actually legal there, and how did they get there, how didn't they get there. It's useful and kind of empowering to have that extra knowledge under your belt. So when you look at our cesspool of a situation, you'll have a better idea of maybe what you can do. So spend a couple of hours of your week, a few maybe, if you're, I mean, I'm a binge studier, so I'm just going to say study constantly. But it pays. Just look at the world around you. Don't just look at the United States. Look at everywhere.
I like it.
I have one thought. I know that with particularly with abortion, we always talk about it in the context of women and you know, how it will impact women, whether it's their bodily autonomy, whether it's their health, things like that. But I would just like to say that a lot of men take a backseat in this conversation, and they should for a lot of reasons. But at the same time, this is not just a women's issue because the women are getting pregnant by men. Okay. So the thing is that now we're talking about childcare. We're talking about you having to take care and rear a child that maybe you did not want or you and your partner did not want. We're talking about you are going to be legally responsible for this life. Like, you're going to be responsible for this life. You're going to have to make certain decisions. And that right to bodily autonomy was also taken away from the man, I guess, in an indirect way, because it's like, if me and a partner decide that we don't want to have a child, now you're going to be on the hook for the rest of your life too, because this is also your kid. So it's not just a women's thing. And I think that sometimes men need to be a part of the conversation, because it's like, when we have right to contraception, who are y'all sending to the store to get a plan B? You're not sending anybody because ain't no plan Bs. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, so now unless your pullout game is strong, you on the hook. Like, so now it's, you know what I'm saying? Now it's back on you. Now it's, maybe they don't want you to have condoms or whatever. Like, what are you going to do with that? Are y'all going to stop having sex? You're not. So the thing is that men have a place in this conversation, and they should and can speak up and speak out about this stuff. Like, this is not just for women to speak out about, because it is not exclusive to women. It impacts everybody. This is a reproductive issue. This is an everybody general healthcare issue. And I think that men need to start speaking up. And if they don't, like I said before, they will soon learn that these kids belong to them. When you go before the court and have to take a paternity test, and then now you won't getting put on child support. And again, you're suffering the economic impacts of the recession and inflation and all these other things, just like women are. And maybe you don't have to carry the baby, but that baby's doggone sure it's yours. So what are you going to do about that? And is that going to impact your life? And I think men should really start thinking about that before being like, oh, well, it's just like a women's thing. And like, yeah, you can decide to leave. But see, for me, it's just like, okay, y'all need to be seriously considering impregnating women and how you're going to do this. Like, how this is, what role that you all have to play in reproductive health. And I think that should be a part of men's conversations as well.
Well said. So, ladies, I guess we'll start with Lindsay. Let them know where to find you at for those who want to holler at you, have conversation with you. Respectable conversation, please. Don't be a dick. Be respectful.
I'll be a dick right back.
Yes, you will.
Be respectful to these ladies. These ladies poured their hearts out tonight, and I greatly appreciate it. They gave you a different point of view and gave you something to think about. So be respectful, be kind, be courteous. So Lindsay, you go first.
You guys can find me at Real Lindsay Gray at both Twitter and Instagram, and also www.lindsaygray.com.
I guess you go.
Website. That's official.
You go next, Crystal.
You can find me at crystalsimagination.com. All the projects that will help take your mind off of the bullshit that is the world right now. We've currently got a legacy audio drama going on that Lindsay was in, that Delvin got to be in, and he's a big fan of the show.
I was murdered.
Yeah, it's okay. New episode drops on Tuesday. The Good News Show will hopefully be coming back soon because damn, I'm tired of doom scrolling on Twitter. So I'm working on that. That's it.
Your turn, Hannah.
Well, you guys can find me as Lucky's Pixel on everywhere, especially Twitter, because I'm more active there. If you want to talk to me about salty language things, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about that, because I'll talk to you for hours.
I'll be in her garden stealing her vegetables.
Please do. I'll have too much.
All right, you go ahead, Anna.
You can find me at There Goes Anna on pretty much all socials. I am usually talking about law and policy and politics on Dig on America podcast, which is every Wednesday at 7 Pacific Standard Time, which is great. We talk about stuff like this all the time. It's super fun, very rambunctious, but a lot of expletives. So if you're into that, definitely tune in.
Yes. Thank you guys for listening. This has been fantastic. And as always, Delvin Cox Experience, we are out. Peace.